Yo, what's up? Shout out to all the fellow human beings out there, and thank you for tuning in twice again to the Viewturistic YouTube channel. Let me rap to you for a minute. Today, I want to discuss a person that has sometimes has too much control over my life. A person that has the potential to stand in my way of greatness. The person who has the potential to control my emotions, the person that has the potential to control pretty much everything that I do. This is my number one enemy. Some of you might share this same enemy as well, in your life. Pretty sure you know who I'm talking about by now. And that number one enemy is myself. I'm pretty sure some of you who are watching have come to the realization that the number one enemy in our lives are ourselves. We tend to be our own worst enemies in life and in regards to being successful in our lives, in regards to happiness, in regards to anything that you can consider that will add substance and improve your quality of life. Oftentimes, the number one enemy in those situations is ourselves. I know for me, I can't speak for anyone else, but from my view, is that I tend to be too hard on myself sometimes because I'm somewhat of a perfectionist. You have even with these videos. I know it's not a huge deal, but you have no idea how many, probably hundreds, maybe even thousands of ideas that I've had to do videos. And I know, there's some people who just boom, just put stuff out, whatever it is that comes to their mind, they just put it out no matter what, and kind of flood the scene with quality, which that works for some people, obviously, and that's fine if that's the method that you choose, and some people find success in that. However, I tend to be a bit of a perfectionist sometimes, and I'll have 1,001 ideas before I actually feel that it's good enough for my standards to actually project those ideas and those thoughts to other people, because I know that some people actually rely on or depend on getting my view or my perspective, or anyone else's for that matter, to help them out in a situation that they might be going through. So because of that, I bear a big responsibility, and I also, I don't want to look bad doing it. Not for anyone else, but I don't want to look bad doing it for myself, because when I critique these things, anything that I do, I critique it as if I'm critiquing a complete stranger, or as if I'm looking at someone else's body of work, and me not having that personal bias that you get by default because you're judging yourself. You want to be your own best fan. You want to be your biggest fan. So sometimes that bias can mixing that bias in there, it can kind of cloud your view when you're trying to judge your quality of work. But being the perfectionist that I am, sometimes I overthink it. Sometimes I sit on things too long, which that tends to make me my worst enemy. I get in my own way sometimes, and like I said, it's a catch-22. Just like with any other thing in life, it's a catch-22. Most things have a catch-22, meaning that there's a good side to it and there's a bad side to it as well. And the most imperative thing to do is to find that balance in between that catch-22. So what would that be, a catch-11? I don't know. Check my math. But yeah, finding that balance. So in regards to myself being my own worst enemy, there's a fine line between being overly critical about my work, and also having the courage to just say, fuck it, here it is. I felt like I did my best on it, so I'm going to put it out there. If other people like it, I love it. That's great. If people don't like it, then I know that deep down inside, I did my best. That's what any type of artist, any type of person who does work for others to judge or for others to view. You're gonna have a select amount of people who support it and who like it, and you're gonna have a set amount of people who, for no matter how hard you try, no matter how good you think it is, a million other people can think that it's a masterpiece, but that one person, it just might not fit their taste and they're just not going to like it. And that's something that we need to, or I don't want to tell you what you need to do. I got to work on that. But that's something that you might want to consider doing, is understanding that no matter what you do, there's going to be people who like it and there's going to be people who don't like it. And the sooner that you can accept that fact as a reality, the sooner you can work on you yourself being one less of those haters, or one less of those people who aren't a fan of yourself. Because like I said, oftentimes we become our own worst enemies. Oftentimes in situations that, let's say you make a mistake in life. There was a point of time where I felt like, my marriage and stuff like that was a mistake. Some of you probably know that I'm divorced. I'm a single dad. And there was a point of time where I felt like I was a failure because that marriage didn't work. And I was a failure because, it was always like, before my son was born, I never really had dreams of being like this big time family man or anything like that. It just wasn't something that was in the stars for me. But it happened. And once my son was actually here, like, I fell in love with the idea of being a dad. I fell in love with being a dad. I fell in love with the idea of having a family, and I fell in love with the idea of providing a two-parent household for my son. However, when that marriage failed, I took I took that pretty hard on myself, and I kind of labeled myself a failure. And I felt that I made too many mistakes in life that led to the unhappiness that I suffered as a result of not being able to give my son that lifestyle that I planned for him once he was here. So, me being my own worst enemy, I judged myself too hard when, in reality, there's two sides to everything. Like, I'm not gonna take all the blame for that failure in life anymore, because some of that failure has to be shared with the other party. Are there times when there's more than one party involved in a circumstance in life? There's always going to be two sides to that story. And sometimes, at some points in those two people's relationship, or their bond, or those seasons that they're in each other's lives, there's going to be some points where one person possibly did more things wrong and the other person was working towards, keeping things together. And then sometimes that scale tips and it's the other way around. So you can't, especially in human relationships, I don't think personally, from my view, there's no one situation where one sole person in that situation can take the entire shift of the blame for that to go wrong. And, going through my struggles and trying to put together in my mind how I can forgive myself for feeling like such a failure, for failing to provide my son a certain lifestyle that I had ideas for him to have. I took that pretty hard, and I overjudged myself, and I became my worst enemy. Like, I allowed myself to stop myself in my tracks. I felt like, oh, I'm 30 years old. I'm divorced by the time I'm 30. I'll never be able to find another woman who's going to want to, and like I said, this was just, a lot of it was my imagination, because I was so critical of myself and being my number one enemy. I've kind of filled my head with all these false realities and these false perceptions of what I thought other people would think of me, which I did another video on that, about not giving a fuck what other people think about you. That's part of my journey to being a better holistic human being. But yeah, I was so concerned about what others would think about me being a 30-year-old divorcee, single dad, and things like that. That I was like, man, I really fucked up, and that attitude prevented me from living, honestly. Like, I didn't want to have a social life anymore. I thought that I would never be able to be successful in other ventures just because of that one failure, because I was such a huge enemy of myself in that one area. I allowed it to spill over into so many other areas of my life, and it kind of held me back. But the only person that I can blame for that, the only true enemy that I can attack to win, or to win that war, to win that battle, is myself. Like, it took me to realize that, hey, like, don't be so hard on yourself. Ain't nobody perfect. And in regards to the example that I just gave you about my failed marriage, if there's people out there who want to believe, people are going to believe whatever it is that they want to believe, no matter what, and fuck them. Like, at this point, no one else has control over my destiny except for myself. And when you continue to be your own worst enemy, it's hard for you to see that, and you continue to be your own worst enemy, and you continue to get in your way of things. You continue to beat yourself down. Listen, there's already enough people in this world who want to beat you down for what it is that you do, that want to jump on your back and keep you down and prevent you from being successful, and hate on your success, and all those things. There's enough people. Trust me, you're gonna have your fair share of people who want to put you down and don't want to see you win. The last person that you need to be doing that is yourself. You should be your number one fan. You should be your number one supporter. You should be the number one person to say, hey, okay, I fucked up. I made a mistake. For those who won't accept me for this mistake, that's their loss. You kind of got to have that attitude in order to keep it moving, in order to keep some type of pride about yourself, in order to maintain a certain level of self-esteem after making, a certain amount of mistakes in your life. And trust me, I have plenty of them. Like, this video could probably go on for 2 hours if I sat here and told you about all the mistakes that I made in life, that I felt like, or that at one point of time, me being my own worst enemy, I allowed myself to get in my way and not move past those mistakes. We could talk about that all day. So I have plenty examples of that. But one thing that I'm starting to learn, one thing that I see that does work for me, one thing that I see that does work for other people, is to not be so critical of yourself and not be such a huge enemy of yourself to the point where you prevent yourself from overcoming those obstacles, and you prevent yourself from believing in yourself and believing that those mistakes or those situations identify you as who you are. Like, those, you aren't a product. No. So the life that you're living and the consequences are a product of those mistakes, but your identity is not a product of those mistakes. You are not your mistakes. So don't be so hard on yourself. Like, it's cool trust me, I understand what it's like to be a perfectionist. I understand that feeling. I understand the feeling of wanting to make sure that you present your best work. And that's a personal thing. It has nothing to do with what others are going to think. That's a personal thing of me wanting to make sure that my work is good up to my standards. So being your worst enemy, you kind of mix those things up a little bit. So hopefully you gain some value from this video. As always, we appreciate you tuning in to the Viewturistic YouTube channel. If you have any topic ideas, if you have any questions, if you want us to talk about anything, or if you want to be featured in a video, you name it, always looking to collaborate, please shoot me a text message at 4142. No, sorry, let me start this out. 4142927258. Until next time, keep viewing what you're viewing. Peace out.
Subscribe.